Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Be to Lead conversation. I am so pleased today to have here with me another wonderful lady, Dolores Hirschmann. Dolores is Chief Clarity Officer at Masters in Clarity. Dolores, welcome. It is really a pleasure and an honor to have you here with me today. Really welcome.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for creating the space for our conversations.
It will be great, and it will be much fun. I know a little bit of your amazing story, and I'm sure you have so much to share, and I look very much forward to it. And just to not to lose any time, to waste any time, can you briefly introduce yourself for people that do not know you?
Yes, I'm a business owner, and I have all my life strived for clarity. I'm a mom. I have 4 children, and I am from Argentina. That's my accent. And I have an American husband. So everybody asks me, well, how did you end up in the US? Because I met a tourist in Buenos Aires. That's my short answer. You're not supposed to marry the tourist. I married the tourist. Um,
Well
so I
done.
actually, I know, this is 2022 is a big year because in the month of July, I turned 50. I
Congratulations.
celebrated 25 wedding anniversary, and
Wow.
one of my children, my only daughter, I have 3 boys and a girl. My daughter turned 21, all in 4 days.
Wow.
So there's a week in July that is like the week, July 18, July 19, July 21st. And usually it's a big week, but when you have 50, 25 wedding anniversary and 21 years old, it was an exhausting
Wow.
week.
Congratulations for all of that. Congratulations. Those are really achievements for sure. Reaching 50, your daughter 21, and 25 years of marriage. I don't think we see them very often these days, actually. So, congratulations. So, Dolores, here is the first question. In this conversation, we really want to show what it means for a woman to have a success story and a path to success. And I would like to learn more about you and what took you where you are today. And the first question would be, at 50, you are looking back now, and have you always wanted to become who you are today? How was the path that took you there like?
Yeah, it's yes and no. I mean, I think I am living my dream in many ways. But as if everything sometimes. So let me just back out of that. And I think you find me. This conversation is going to be an interesting one because you find me at a moment of deep personal reflection. So I'm interested
Awesome.
to see what comes out of this conversation with you, Barbara, because I'm going to be
Awesome.
as honest, as courageous, and as transparent as I can be, because it's the only way that I can serve your audience and have fun. And without fun, we can't do anything. So I think as I look back, I dreamt my life since I was a little girl. I
Mhm.
dreamt my children. I remember being a teenager or a young lady and looking at couples and like saying, "Oh, I would like a husband that has that, and I would like a husband that looks like that and doesn't do that." And like there was an awareness, and I can only say it looking back because at the moment I didn't know I was doing that, but I was in some ways. I've been known and I've been labeled a visionary, and I recognize myself as a visionary, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm not going to be humble in the sense that I'm going
No.
to tell you as it is, and is that I recognize that there was a lot of me as a visionary that had made my life possible, and the power of imagining what you
Mhm.
want and watching it come about. Now, not everything in my life is as I imagined it. There are things that I would like, I would rather have this or that, right? There's always something. But if the one thing I would learn from myself in the last 50 years is how much power my imagination has and how much my judgment or self-doubt disempowered me.
Mm. Mm.
And there's always a dance of both.
Mm. So, from what you are saying, and this fascinates me all the time. So, you say I was a visionary. I was. It seems very clear already of what I wanted since I was a little girl, to the point where I identified characteristics of my future husband already that I wanted or not. And often we hear the power of imagination and being clear about what you want. What I am often challenged by, though, is that it is not so straightforward for people and for women to know what they want. I don't think that it is that easy to know what you want. And actually, I think it is an ability and something that we need to allow ourselves as women, I think. So, my question to you would be, you were clear about what you wanted, but was that really so? Or did you have to find out how to want, how to be free to want something? Because I think that there is often we take it too much for granted. And when we say, you tell me what you want and that's it. I don't know what I want. I need to find a way to figure that out. And that's the part that I think we don't address. So how was it that for you?
So, so I have so many stories around the wanting, and I think if I think I mean for the shopping for my husband, um, there was a lot that I would say I don't want that. Like it was what I didn't want was very clear, and there were some examples, not many, that I thought, oh, that would be really nice to have. So there was a very, as far as like that partner and that image of me forming a family, luckily it was fairly clear what I wanted and what I didn't want. The rest has always been very fuzzy.
Hmm.
And I remember at one point in my career where my children were all in school age. So my children were all born in 6 years.
Wow.
So, so
Congratulations for that too.
it,
You're an
it,
athlete.
it was a tough. My younger two are 14 months apart.
Wow.
So when I was turning 40, all of my kids were in school age.
Mhm.
And that brought its own challenge because I was like, okay, so what do I want now? Um, and I remember being engaged in a project. I was working part time. I was a mom full time. And I wasn't happy. And I really wasn't happy. And the person I was working with asked me, what do I want? And I started crying in a meeting.
Hmm.
And I went back home and I told my husband about it. And he proceeded to show me the clip. There's a movie, A League of Their Own, uh, an old movie with Tom
Mhm.
Hanks and Gina Davis and Madonna. Everybody
Mhm.
was in that movie. And there's a clip where Tom Hanks tells, I think, Madonna or Gina Davis, there's no crying in baseball.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my husband started playing that for me, kind of as a joke, but almost like he was saying there's no crying in business, and in my business, there's a lot of crying, but that's just a side note. Um, but I was very unhappy where I was, very, and I was blaming the context, and the situation for my happiness, from my unhappiness. But I think anybody listening this might resonate. Sometimes we are stuck and unhappy in a place, and there's nobody that can take us out of that place unless we get clear of what we want and take action. And
Hmm.
so I was stuck, not because there was nothing holding me there. Nobody was
Hmm.
forcing me. I wasn't,
Hmm.
locked in a room or forced to anything. But because I did not know what I wanted,
Hmm.
I was internally stuck and I was not taking action. And it was
Hmm.
an amazing experience that day, because I remember it. It was about 12 years ago or 10 years ago, that I went home and it dawned on me that I was in that place feeling what I was feeling because I had no direction. I
Mm.
had no clarity of self. And so without clarity, there's no action. Without action, there's no movement. Without movement, you are stuck. And I went home and just knowing, like it's so liberating. You know how when you're very sick until you have a diagnosis. And you might still
Mm.
stay sick, but with a diagnosis comes action.
Mm. Mm.
Um, that day I got a diagnosis
Mm.
that I was stuck because I had no clarity.
Mm. So the question, what do you want, that made you cry in the meeting was actually eliciting the fact that I don't know what I want because there is no clarity in the direction where I could go, what I could do, who am I? So the lack of clarity at many levels and many levels of depth about you, right? So the question, what do you want, becomes a hurting question because it shows I I I don't know. I don't know. And so it becomes, it seems to me it was for you as well an opportunity to start a program of discovery.
Exactly. And so what it triggered for me, that question, and well, the question itself is an innocuous question, but my reaction to the question, how that question touched me, it gave me the awareness of where I was standing. I That moment
Mm.
I was clear, I was confused.
Oh, good. That was a step forward.
It's still clarity. I'll take it. I was clear,
Yes.
I was lost. And that tiny, tiny, tiny clarity put me on a search. I
Mm.
didn't have an answer. It just, the realization of where I was allowed me to be open to a journey.
Mm.
And
So,
the universe,
sorry. So let me see if I understood. So you became clear that you were lost. So the search suddenly becomes not anymore what do I want, but there is a search that needs to happen before the wanting. And it seems like the path, the next step for you was to become curious about yourself, maybe, and your life without any
curious.
direction yet, isn't it?
What it did, I became curious. What happens when you become curious?
Mm.
You open up. And what happens when you open up is you're no longer what my friend Dana Wilde, she wrote an amazing book, which I can't remember the name right now, but she calls this unconscious ignorance
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
unconscious. Yeah, I think she calls it unconscious ignorance. But basically, she's an expert in mindset and manifesting. Is when you're not curious, and many times we're not curious because we are either so stuck that we don't even know we're stuck, but we're just miserable. We just are wallowing in
Mm-hmm.
that. When you turn on curiosity, what you turn on is the antennas that pick up signals or signs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was my experience. And you know what, Barbara? The universe is magic when you let it do, when you don't get in the way. It's just, and it's so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you don't get in the way, it's so fast.
So what would now I'm really curious because from what do you want? I don't know, and I become curious about myself and discovering and open up to what is a surprise, maybe unexpected, and you're really open to anything. So your life and your story in that moment is an example of, as you say, the universe was fast and is surprising, and you never know that I add. So what happened in your experience at that moment when you started becoming curious and you turned on
Now you're
those
like, what
antennas?
happened? So I literally went home from that meeting crying, and my husband played that video, which made me more annoyed and laughing at the same time. And within a couple of days, I think it was days, I think it was that same week. Don't remember exactly, but it was the same week. It was the same month. I know that. I went out for dinner for my son's birthday. So my oldest son was turning 13 or 12. So it was about 10 years ago. He was turning 13. So it was 10 years ago in September. And we went out for dinner with some family members, not, my close, my husband, my kids, and then some cousins and family or whatever. And someone at that table, not a close family connection, actually someone that I don't usually would go to for anything, or to the point that I don't even really respect that person, just family history. But that person mentioned that she was studying coaching. Just that. I didn't ask anything. I went home and I'm like, what's coaching? This is 10 years ago, not so long ago. What is coaching? What did that person mean? So I Googled, and then the next day my sister happened to probably called because it was my son's birthday, now that I think about it. And I don't know what, I picked up the phone and I said, hey, have you ever heard about the word coaching? And she's like, oh, funny that you mentioned. My husband has a coach at work and blah, blah, blah. So I talked to her husband, my brother-in-law, and he's telling me all about his coach. And I said, can I talk to him? And so that I could have picked on any word over dinner. I picked on that word and I didn't even ask questions, but I took it home. I had no idea what a coach was. And I would think, oh, you're living under a rock. This is 10 years ago. It wasn't so long ago. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I knew about therapists, I knew about psychology, but I didn't know that word. Long story short, I enrolled in a coaching training program January. So that was September. In January, I was already enrolled in a coaching program. And at the same time, you might know this, but I had already done some things that had kind of moved me deeply. I'm a writer at heart, so I've done some writing. And I enrolled in this program with a friend of mine who was a writer. And I had asked her for years, to lead this workshop because I wanted to be part of it. And she was like, I'm not sure, I don't have time and this and that. And finally she said yes. So that February, and now we're talking February 2013, she said yes to leading the 12-week program of the Artist Way, which you probably know.
I do. Powerful. I love it.
Powerful. And I mean, I had the book, and anybody can go buy the book, but the book itself wasn't doing it for me. I needed to experience it in a community of women. So I started coaching training, and I started the Artist Way at the same time. Within 3 months, I made a decision to move to Argentina with my children because my mom said, you are crazy. There are many reasons. My grandmother was getting old and she passed away that year. And my oldest was going into 8th grade. And it was the last year of kind of like middle school before he went to high school, that if we were going to do something crazy, it was then or never. So anyway, many reasons, but we did move to Argentina. And I lived in Argentina for 6 months. So long story short, but this is just a glimpse. But this was a very big moment of transition in my life. And find me on my year of 50. So I think as I'm sharing this with you, there's so much that is going to go into my journal tonight because you're triggering this conversation with you, because I just turned 50. And that happened when I was 40.
So what I'm hearing you say, and I think it is a powerful lesson and a powerful example for many of us for the future and for younger women as well, is that when we do not know how to answer the question that people keep throwing at us so easily, so what do you want? And when we do not know how to answer, it seems to me, listening to your story, that it is because that answer needs to unlock so many realities before we can answer. For you, it was becoming serious, finding a new industry, exploring parts of yourself, given the opportunity to your family to address their needs, and moving back for a period to Argentina, so going back to your country. So in that answer, so what do you want, you could, it was packed in so much. And so by you being honest with yourself and crying, I don't know how to answer that, because I think we sense that there is so much more that needs to happen before we can address that question. And for you, the answer was, I'm open, I'm curious, I pay attention. You said I could pick any word. I picked the word coaching, but from a person that I didn't even respect it that much, right? And yet I followed the word, and it opened up a new universe
And
for
that's
you.
all I did. I googled it and I followed the word, and one curious. So there was curiosity and action. Curiosity, I'm curious, I'll Google.
Mm, mm,
I'm curious, I'll mention it to my sister, although it has nothing to do. And now I learned my lesson. When something is kind of percolating in my head, I actually just share it with anybody else run into. Like
mm.
I'll say to you, I don't know, I have 3 herniated discs, and I'm trying to figure out my best way out of that. And who knows, maybe you have my answer. Like, I have learned to be open to the reality, not the possibility, the reality that the universe always has my answers. All
Mm,
I have to do is show up, ask, and listen.
mm. Show up, ask, and listen. So, how did you show up after you have asked the questions, listened for inputs, and then you showed up before when you did that, and I imagine afterwards, right? How did you
You
show
take,
up for what happened next? So it seems it was a sliding door moment. It was a changing.
and so what happened? So when, how did the story go? I went to training coaching. It was a year program with CTI, the Coaches Institute. I'm an ICF accredited coach, PCC, and all that. And I I was in training. So the first part was in person back in the day, and the second part of the training was actually virtual. It was on not on Zoom back then,
Mm,
but it was on phone.
mm, mm, mm,
So I
mm.
moved to Argentina and I continued with that while I was there. And then when I came back, when we came back from Argentina after that adventure in 2014, I started my coaching business. And I started being curious and looking for the answers. So I had a lot of questions around. I was very good at starting businesses. I started many businesses, but I had never started a digital business. And there was a lot for me to learn. And so I started working with some business coaches. Then I launched my business. I started growing. I was still full time mom, so part time business owner, but I was doing decent money. Then I got bored again. Within 2 3 years, I was 100% about coach, and I was like, yeah, this is good, but there's something missing. I'm not sure what. And so I decided to. So I asked myself, what would I do for free all day long? Which is something that I would ask my clients all the time. And the answer to that question was, I would hang out with people with big ideas all day long.
Mhm.
And so at that time, I had already kind of been involved with the TED conferences. And so I I asked the question, what would I do for free all day long? I answered, and within a week, I got a call saying, hey, would you consider organizing another TEDx in our community? Because I had been part of one for 2 years earlier, and nothing has happened since. And so I'm like, sure. So for 3 years, I ran one of the largest TEDx events in the East Coast,
Beautiful.
and with amazing speakers, one of which is an astronaut right now. Like, it's like amazing.
Oh, awesome.
Um, and I recognized where I wanted to play, which was I love being a coach, but what I love more is seeing ideas come into reality.
Mm,
And coaching is part of what I do, in that helping my clients kind of get out of their own way. But I'm a strategist at heart and a communicator. And so I help my clients communicate powerfully and design businesses at scale, impact
Well,
businesses at scale.
so,
And so my business changed. My business changed from purely coaching, life coaching, leadership coaching, which is what I was doing, to more business strategy.
so you are an entrepreneur. I understand. You have created many
Yes.
businesses, right? And knowing a little
Yes.
bit of your story, what would you say are key skills, three key skills for a woman in order to be a successful entrepreneur? Here on LinkedIn, there are many women that are maybe in corporate, in big organizations. And now, even in corporations, you need to be an entrepreneur. So, what would you say are three key skills that a woman needs to become curious about and grow into in order to be a successful entrepreneur? And what are challenges that you have faced? Too many questions.
Yeah. So key skills uh, might not be what you usually hear: intuition,
Mm-hmm. I
self
love that.
confidence,
Yeah.
creativity. Intuition, self confidence, clarity, mastering
Mm.
your own clarity.
These are already very important. With this, we have a program for more than 1 year. So,
Yeah.
intuition. Can you expand a little bit on intuition and what are the
Oh,
challenges
I don't
towards
do
intuition?
anything without intuition.
Mm.
I married my husband because of intuition. So, what does intuition mean, and why did I name it first? Because I honestly believe that we could literally turn off everything, our brain, everything, turn it all off. And if we lead or take action based on our intuitive drive,
Mm-hmm.
we will never miss the mark. Our brain gets us in trouble. Not saying that the brain isn't important, it's really important. But if we don't honor our knowing, KNOWING, if we don't honor our knowing and we disregard our knowing, then we're going to need a lot of brain to find our path. And that is efforted.
Mm. How did you manage to have a clear distinction between your intuition and what was the suggestion of your mind and of your brain? Because I think that also needs practice for many
Yeah,
women and
I
many
have,
men as well.
I'm, I think in that sense, maybe my brain is not so good. I don't know, but um,
I don't think so.
I, I have been. If I have to be honest, so if I have to be honest, it's the only thing I listen to, and the brain usually is telling me things that are not lifting me up. The brain tends to give me more self doubt than anything else. My gut, my intuition, my knowing is always correct.
Hmm.
And there's
And
always a dance, of course, and I do engage the brain and do lists and pros and cons and all that. But I mean, and if you look at my personality, whether you look at Strength Finder or Colby or whatever, you'll see, like, in, the Colby test, the one that measures how you operate. I have
mhm.
9 out of 10 in quick
Oh,
action, and I
wow.
have 2 out of 10 in fact finding.
Wow.
So I will
You're
take
fast.
action before I even know where. I mean, I'll go before I even know
Mm,
where I'm going.
mm, 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 mm,
And in Strength Finder, I'm woo and activator. I think I'm my first two.
mm. So
So
action, action. You are an action lady.
I am in action because I have an intuitive hunch and I take action.
And so if you had to teach me how to become aware of it, right?
Yes.
So you say, Barbara, here it is how you start doing it tomorrow, because maybe I have no clue what my intuition is. I mix it with my thoughts. So
Let's do it.
how would you teach me to listen to my intuition, and so everybody who is listening, we become masters
Okay.
in
Let's do it.
listening to your intuition. So how
And
would
by
you
the way, if you're listening to this, this was not rehearsed, by the way. I'm just disclaimer. I don't know what's going to come out of it, but
it is not.
so let me ask you this, Barbara. What is something that you feel is holding you back or getting in your way? Let's just be honest. Let's just do something. This is life coaching.
Yeah, let's do that. I would like to travel more, and so the possibility the because it is not as possible as it was before, it is probably is holding me back in terms of dreaming.
So what is getting in the way of traveling more?
Pardon?
What is getting in the way of traveling more?
I don't know, probably the fact that for a couple of years, with all that happened with COVID, we have been more stationary, and so my way of thinking has changed, or my way of desiring a change. But there is this mix inside, right? Is that the change that happened? Should I go back to where it was before? So there is this dialogue.
And if I were to ask, what is true about what you think? There's a dialogue around this. What part of the dialogue is actually true?
And if I have to be very honest, of course, probably I would say, well, I would rather start traveling again. And I forget about what in the past couple of years my brain has been adapting to.
And if you were to say, and so, I mean, and you have it right there. I mean, that's what your brain says, but what you know is true for you is your creative capacity wakes up when you travel. That is the truth.
Yeah. So what you are inviting me in this case, and the people to, in order to connect with intuition, is what is actually that sounds or feels true more than what the brain is reasoning.
Whenever and just from this conversation, if the audience is listening, is you could hear it in that, well, my dialogue, well, if it's my dialogue, it's in your brain.
Yeah.
The intuition doesn't talk, it feels.
It's
and it's like, well, I know that when I travel, I get creative and I dream, but my dialogue is telling me that my brain has adapted to a way that is not conducive to my creativity. But there's a knowing that travel makes me dream.
That's beautiful. So the way to understand and create and begin to distinguish our intuition, that it is much more powerful, even and give us a direction more than our brain, is really sensing it instead of listening to a dialogue.
Exactly. It's physical. It's, some people have chills. Some people, I will actually, when an intuitive thought comes up, and actually it's funny because my team knows this, and long-term clients know this, and usually when apparently they've told me I put a funny face, and if I'm coaching them, they'll go and grab their phone and start recording me, because whatever's going to come out is exactly what they need.
Awesome.
So for me, when I have that intuitive thought that comes up, or an idea, I laugh a little bit. Like I said, it's almost like some people call it receiving. Some people call it the hearing. Like, for me, it's intuition, but some people say, this is what's coming up for me. Like, there's a lot of language that you could be using, but it is that inspired thought or idea. And when you think about the word inspired, independent of what you believe, I believe that inspired is in spirit. So we are either operating from our brain, which is this, or we are operating from our intuition, which is connected to the energy of the universe, and we allow inspiration in spirit or spirit to come in.
And this belief and this experience that they are describing is the one that actually you followed and that took you where you are today in terms of your career and successful career, being the breadwinner in the family, supporting four children, right? And actually, it was a result of following your intuition.
Yeah, and there's moments where I don't listen too well, and I find myself in situations where like I'm not loving this, or I'm not loving this project, or I'm not
Mm,
loving this client. And then when and it may be that I stayed in that place long or too long, and then I go back in and I tap in and say, okay, well, obviously you forgot to tap in.
mm,
So it's not that it's constant and always, but I know that when I feel off, it's because I'm off.
mm. And in discovering all of these, you are clearly very talented and you know now what you want and what you are doing. Did you have mentors or role models that intentionally you looked for and you followed and that accompany you in your journey?
Yeah. So when I became a coach, I and launched my coaching business, I ended up working with a coach. Her name is Fabienne Fredrickson, which I respect a lot. And I worked with her for a few years. I actually became her coach, and I ended up coaching within her community as one of her in-house coaches. And she opened up to the possibility. So she, I've always operated from my intuition. I just didn't know that. She put words for me on that. I just didn't
Mm,
know that's what I did. And
mm,
so, and because that's what she did. Um, and by the way, Barbara, I don't think I have a gift. I think I practice that gift now that I know what that is. But I think we all have it. We just have
mm,
to wake up to it. I'm not special in
mm,
any way.
mm.
I I'm not.
So the difference that makes a difference in this case and that allows you to be successful is the fact that you have a gift that is available to everybody, and the difference might be that you practice it. We Many people don't know yet how, first that there is a gift and then how to practice it, so it is tuning into that.
Yeah, and I would say, well, I'm a marketer at heart. It's not a gift; it's a shortcut.
It's a shortcut. Even better probably.
Yeah, I mean, if you're struggling with something, go don't stop paying out there for the answer. Looking out there, just tap in, because the answer is that, and you won't get the answer you want in the way you want it. What you're gonna get is a sign, and your job is to follow it.
So when you say tap into that and tune into that, do you do that through meditation? Do you do it through writing? How do you do that? So again,
Yeah,
for those
it,
who are listening, we want to learn and doing it after we've finished listening to this conversation.
so I'll give you some actual things I've done, and just know that I'm a creative. So I have a really hard time following rules,
Good.
and I have I'm very consistent with something that I'm very not consistent with a lot of things. I would love to say to you that I meditate quietly every day for 30 minutes. I don't. I would love to say that I practice my morning pages from the artist way every day. I don't. Or at night. I don't. But I will say that when I do, life is much better. And
Mm,
maybe this conversation that I'm having with you right now is saying, you know how sometimes you end up saying things that you need to hear? So
yes.
as I'm saying this, I'm saying to myself, Dolores, go back to consistent morning pages. So for me, there's a lot of things that I've tried. I am not perfect in consistency, but when I do morning pages consistently, it makes a huge difference. I want to also be honest, a lot of the things I have them integrated. So any moment that I have quiet, it's a moment where I tap in. And the other thing I'm going to share with you and the world, because I think it's important, and this is a post-COVID thing, I found, and this is just something that has come through for me in the last couple of weeks, I realized I became addicted to Netflix during COVID. And one of the biggest pleasures since I was very young was going to bed with a book. Like I love going to bed with a book, fiction. I mean, I could read nonfiction and self-help, but really I want fiction, preferably historical novels. With COVID, there was so much time at home, and I had my iPad. I got a new iPad, and so my iPad became my going to bed with my iPad, which I didn't realize how bad that was. I did that for 2.5 years since COVID, really, since 2020. 2.5 years. And I tried to go back to reading. My brain just couldn't wrap it around it. And my mom gifted me a book 3 weeks ago, and I finished, and now I'm reading the second one, and where's my book? I want to show it to you. It's under my computer. That's why. Because I'm not in my office. So I'm now reading the second one. It's a series of 7. But what I want to say here is that I recognize how much calmer I'm feeling and much better I'm sleeping because I'm back to reading a book. And that is simple. I'm just saying, read a book. If you're watching TV or have your phone next to your bed, put it downstairs or in another room and read a book to bed.
Again, that is another way to be connected and remain connected with our center, isn't it?
And turn on your curiosity and your imagination, because when we watch, there's nothing for us to imagine. There's a lot for us to feel. Movies are great and I love them, and there's a lot of feeling, but there's no imagination that is triggered. And without imagination from a fiction book, there's no imagination for our dreaming or the life you want. So I know we're running out of time now, but
but we have been touched upon very important things. So we talked about the importance of imagining and being a visionary and using our imagination to get what we want. We said that it is not that easy to know and be connected to what we want. So there is a journey of discovery and finding clarity around what we want. And that journey took you and took us into connecting and remembering perhaps that there is this powerful element in us, which is our intuition. So how to remain connected with our intuition that opens up actually possibilities beyond what our mind wants to invite us to follow. And in the end, there is one question that I would like to ask you to conclude a little bit. You are a very successful entrepreneur. You started many businesses. You are very energetic, and you use clearly your brain. You are a woman of action. You have 4 children. You have a family, and you have been able to do all these. I'm sure there have been several moments, as it happens in everybody's life, when you might have felt discouraged or things were particularly hard. How did you overcome those moments? What did you do?
So I am in one of those moments right now. I've been dealing with severe back pain since February. I have 3 herniated discs. I was pretty much not walking for a whole month, and I'm still not better. I'm in pain all the time. And I can't say I have it figured out. It hasn't stopped me work-wise, but it's made me more tired. I have less stamina. And it's also, I'm in a journey right now of, I'm honest, Barbara, when I say that I am grateful for the time you gave me for this conversation, because I think a lot of the things I shared with you are things I need to tap in for myself in this moment, because I'm in a moment of trying to find my not just my physical well-being, and that's part of it, but I believe that this physical well-being, this physical um, moment that I'm in, is a sign of
Yeah.
me looking back in and reconnecting with with my past. So I'm honoring my pain to open my path, and not every day is easy.
Oh, Dolores, thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure it is not easy to share this, and it is a precious gem. And as I write at the beginning of my book, when we go through pain, transformation occurs. And pain, I think, is the one of the best refiners of us, and it helps us really, as you said, to reconnect with parts of ourselves that maybe we forgot about, or they went lost in the journey, and now it is time to get back to them. So it is for sure a precious time. And that's when then the stamina, the courage, the determination, the self-confidence, the creativity, the intuition that you mentioned, that are actually skills that you said entrepreneurs need. You are entrepreneur of yourself in your life, so those are for sure elements that you can leverage. And although we know that when we are in pain and our body is in pain, and for women the transition to 50 and 50 plus is always an interesting moment. So
Yeah.
uh, thank you so much for sharing this. And I don't know if you would like to add anything that comes to mind right now that I didn't ask you about before we conclude our conversation today. We have touched upon so many things. Maybe there is that last things that I did not ask you about that you would like to share, or it's you gave us so much already. Just ask.
Yeah, I think just there's a lot of noise out there. Just know that your knowing is all you need, and trust that always.
Beautiful, beautiful. Dolores, I thank you so much for your time, for sharing a little bit of your story. There's for sure so much more. How can people connect with you if they want to learn more about you, or they want to use your amazing service? How
Yeah,
do
the best way is to go to mastersinclarity.com,
Mhm.
and just there's a button that says free, and there's some books you can download, or hop on a clarity call with my team, and that's the best way to do it. Mastersinclarity.com.
mastersinclarity.com, and also I imagine here on LinkedIn. That's
Yeah,
how I discovered
Dolores, yes.
you. Wonderful. So thank you very much, Dolores. Thank you everybody for listening to our conversation, and till next time, then hopefully we'll
Thank
have
you, Aurora.
another chance.